India is world's third largest automotive market, and MSDT in India comprises of only 2% on-road fleets, but consumes almost 35% of on-road fuel and responsible for 45% of on-road emissions. Then coming up to the overview of logistics sector in India. So, as per the latest study report of Niti Aayog and RMI India, the logistics sector in India consists of $215 billion with a CAGR of 15.5% and employs around 22 million people in India. And it is about 14.4% of India's GDP. The existing freight demand is around 1.4 trillion in 2023, which is projected to reach up to 9.6 trillion ton kilometer by 2050. And the number of MSGTs in the same will be 4 times by 2050. And it is required to focus on the sector as this is the high time. There are policy level supports from the central government through the National Infrastructure Pipeline and national level policies such as PM Gati Shakti Mission Scheme. So now coming up to the segmentation of logistics application. So Climate Group conducted a study and come up with the early market outlook report last year, where we studied the segmentation of logistic application, and the outcome if we see, it is the so overall, if we categorize all the applications of MSGT, so we categorize it into 13 applications, and we can see clearly from this graph that parcel, FMCG, and market load has the largest on-road fleet truck share, that is 45%, followed by perishable goods, 18%, and followed by milk and edible oil tankers, that is 9%. Now I'll hand over to to Atul for carrying it from here.
Great. No, I think Sumit, we'll probably just hand it over to Chandana for her to take us through the first slides and make that introduction. Chandana, over to you.
Sure. So, e-Pass platform was launched by Niti Aayog in 2022 September. And since the past 18 months, we have around 17 knowledge partners who've joined us, striving towards, can we move on to the next slide? Yeah. So we're trying to leverage multiple ways and tools to take this conversation ahead and accelerate the zero emission truck deployment, which ranges from the technology showcase to development of certain tools for identification of business cases, certain policy research that is happening, creating awareness in the system, deployment of scalable pilots, identification of how do we actually do it, and certain technical expertise that we're trying to build onto it. Next. So today we'll be mainly focusing on 3 aspects. The first is corridor electrification, which is actually complementing the scalable pilot deployment. Along with that, certain technical expertise that we're trying to put in through policy research and certain interventions. Can we move on to the next? So the corridor electrification, identification of why corridor electrification was done because charging is a critical enabler for zero emission trucking deployment, because the heavy duty trucks travel a lot of long distances and we need certain charging stations because logistics is a time sensitive sector. Given this identification of charging infrastructure, given the identification of charging infrastructure deployment, since it can't be done all at once and the infrastructure saturation can't happen at once, we identified that there needs to be a phase strategy that needs to be chalked out for all the sectors or the segments, and these can be based on either the freight volumes or the kind of duty cycles, use cases that are actually happening, or the kind of clustering of industries that is happening, because due to the geographic placement of the multimodal logistic parks, the distribution hubs, and the ports as well. Based on this, we identified that certain prioritized corridors will be identified, which can be one based on the freight volumes and the truck flow and the volume of goods that have been transported. Based on this identification and the certain sectors and the segments of vehicle, we identify what is the business case and the feasibility of the business case. This can be further continued with certain techno-commercial discussions with OEMs as well. Then the supply side is, once the demand side is finalized and we are able to assess that, we try to substantiate with how much of supply are we actually able to give. This will be further substantiated by the assessment of infrastructure, existing grid capacity, how do we estimate how many number of public charging stations we actually bring in, and where do we deploy these public charging stations. So identification of the right land parcels is also important. Once this is done, we're looking at how the financiers can support the whole transition. How can the phasing of deployment of charging infrastructure and the truck piloting can also be done, post which the monitoring, performance, and the feedback evaluation, everything will be done. So currently, we've been able to identify certain corridors in the Western India, which is in Gujarat and Rajasthan, which have been identified through multiple stakeholder conversations with the cement industries. After rigorous discussions, we've identified this is the belt that we want to actually go ahead with. We've had one round of discussion with all the industry members, and now NITI has actually taken this up and individually discussed with major cement manufacturers on how to take this forward. And we're now having a discussion with major cement manufacturers at NITI on 12th to see how do we actually take this forward, and the business case, how do we actually assess the feasibility of deployment. Moving on to the next. So this transition needs multiple support from various stakeholders of the ecosystem that includes, say, long-term commitments from shippers to identification of lucrative funding mechanisms for from financiers to oil marketing companies, say they start providing land at concessional rates for charge point operators, to OEMs giving service level commitments to the logistics service providers, which will in turn start giving confidence for the financiers as well, to policymakers. So for example, an agency like NHAI can start providing land parcels at wayside amenities for installing, or there are certain waivers for zero emission trucks that have been brought in. So these together can actually further accelerate and promote the deployment of electric trucks along these corridors as well. Based on this kind of analysis, again, this has been supported more. Can you move on to the next? Yeah, so this is further now developed into a policy advisory report as well, wherein last year in 2022 March, I think, 2023 March, there was a technical report or technical report for zero emission truck deployed by Office of Principal Scientific Advisor, which identified 14 critical areas for deployment of zero emission trucks, and what are the technology which is related, which includes all catenary charging and various types of charging, and the R&D which is required to be put in for taking these forward. So based on this, a need for a policy roadmap was also identified by the Office of Principal Scientific Advisor, which actually complements the technical roadmap. And a project management unit has been set up at the Center of Excellence Zero Emission Truck housed at IIT Madras. And we're working with them to develop this policy report. Based on a logical understanding and multiple stakeholder interactions, again, we've identified 5 logical buckets under which the policies can be brought in. The first is incentivization, which looks at both direct and indirect finance. Direct could include upfront demand subsidies and everything. Indirect could include certain waivers, which include the toll waivers or entry time, entry fee relaxations at certain centers. The regulations would be basically amendment of existing regulations to accommodate the zero emission trucks, or mandates that could be slowly brought in to make sure the transition is equitable and just. Infrastructure, we're trying to pull both the levers of power and land, wherein quality and quantity of power supply is assured and land is available for the charge point operators at concessional rates. Certain business and financing tools, wherein, say, interest subvention or risk mitigation mechanisms can be brought in through, say, first loss risk coverage or something like that. And most importantly, the stakeholder, because we want to make sure each and every stakeholder of the system is actually benefited and able to contribute to the whole transition. So we have certain awareness building and capacity building mechanisms that are put in place so that the whole transition is happening together. Further, this, when is developed, will be actually a draft report, which will further be taken up in the EFAS platform for discussions and open to wider public for discussion, so that we actually see how the whole comprehensive policy roadmap for zero emission trucks in India is actually deployed. So that's it from my end. Excited for the panel. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Chandana, for the presentation. Really fascinating stuff. Also, really would want to take a quick second or two to kind of recognize the work that Niti Aayog alongside with WRI has done over the last 6 months or so. In fact, slightly more than that, to bring all the stakeholders and rally and bring all the stakeholders together on a subject such as this, where it's quite easy for us to kind of take different approaches. But that's really been the idea of the eFast platform and really good work. I think just building on some of those things and the strands which Chandana mentioned, one of the things which is an important pillar under the eFast program anchored by the Niti Aayog is really kind of preparing ourselves to create those proof of concepts and build those evidence. And as part of that, the climate group has also gone through a funneling exercise of looking at several such use cases and applications over the last 1 year. And then finally kind of have arrived at a set of use case and applications that we believe are the applications that will move first, right? And really kind of putting our weight behind that. I think in that scheme of things, we are happy to kind of also announce to the industry that we are looking at, in fact, doing 3 pilots at this moment as we speak. And most of these pilots are with our members, Flipkart, IKEA, Vehicle, and JSW. And these are around these use cases, such as the parcel and market load, looking at perishable goods, and also with JSW specifically looking at how can we look at decarbonization and electrification within the mining application as well, now within the mines and outside the mines as well. So really just wanted to bring that attention as well. With that, I think we are on time to kind of move to the more interesting part of the session today, which is the panel discussion. With that, let me ask to go to the next slide, which has an introduction of all the speakers. So we have 3 speakers with us today. We've got Mridul Nagpal, Associate Vice President with Kalyani Powertrains Limited. Welcome, Mridul. We've also got Fanny Westland from the IKEA Asia Pacific. She's the sustainability leader at IKEA and a great champion for the climate group as well. We've been working very closely with Fanny on the electric pilot as well. So there's going to be a little for her to share and see what she can kind of help us in terms of building a perspective of what this means for the sector. And last but not the least, Radhakrishna Gunti at Venus Logistics. He's the regional head of sustainability at Venus. With that, let me begin with you, Fanny. The first question for you is really just for us to understand a bit about your goals and targets on electrification of the middle mile, the line haul, so to say. And clearly, there's a huge target on the electrification of trucks. I think what really kind of stands out is that you've been a leader, IKEA has been a leader, not just placing equal importance on last mile delivery and the electrification there, but also on the middle mile and the line haul, so to say. And you've, of course, gone ahead and taken those commitments on EV100 and EV100 Plus. Could you tell us a bit about your goal on electrification of trucks and why is that important for you?
Yes, of course. Of course, in IKEA, we are working with, all our climate footprints. When it comes to transport and to warehousing, it stands for 4.2% of our climate footprint in IKEA. And that is about 1 million ton of CO2 equivalent. And of course, this is, you can say, maybe a small part of IKEA's total footprint, but we in IKEA, we are really working on each footprint. So it's not that we are compensating or, making offsets to compensate for something else. So we are working in supply chain operation where I work, we are focusing completely on these 4.2% of our climate footprint. And we have a midterm goal, and that is 2030, where we want to reduce every transport with 70%. And also our goal in 2040, that is to have zero emission transportation. And we have a very clear sort of focus. Our focus is really, first and most electrification. So first choice is EV trucks, and then second choice, hydrogen. And then the third is working with biofuels. And of course, we see that biofuels is also an interim solution before we have like the infrastructure for EV trucks and also like the charging infrastructure available. But we also have like to manage this situation. We also feel like we need to create a new operating system. So we decided to have like a backbone of intermodal, so rail, barge, and short sea. So we usually say when we go long, we go intermodal. When we go short, we go electric. And we actually managed really well with our intermodal. So we are up now on 51% of intermodal solution in our total land transportation. And of course, that is also lowering our emissions a lot, right? Because we see like if we move to rail, it's about 50% of the emission if we compare to like a diesel truck. So that is really our big focus on like all our markets. But we also see that, of course, in China, we have come a bit further than on other markets. So here we really see that we can take some learnings from our market in China. Do you want me to share some, Atul, from China?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, Fanny, that was really my second leading question as well. Is there a specific success or a learning for us to kind of hear from China or broadly the APAC region that you're working in as well?
Yeah, and I think that China really stands out. If we look at the other parts like Malaysia, it's a bit, it's not so far ahead when it comes to electrification. Dubai is, of course, in Asia Pacific there, we have been having a bit more success. We have 7 EV trucks running on our flows. But China is really the most developed market that we have. And we really see that we've been pushing for electrification and pilots for many years with our carriers. But now we see actually the opposite. It's really much mature markets. It's actually the carriers who are pushing now, and they have really, developed their ambitious roadmaps, and they are also inspiring other shippers to join on this journey. So we can also see, in 22, we had the 21 EV and hydrogen trucks with 5 carriers. And last year was actually 41 EV and hydrogen with 13 carriers. So we really see also that it's developing, and we see that we have more and more carriers who are taking this initiative. But we see the same thing, that the biggest sort of hurdle is this initial investment, right? That still an EV truck has doubled the price of a diesel truck, even in China. But then we see that the only, the way to overcome is, of course, that you can lease your truck, but also really that we are utilizing the vehicle in a better way. And we also see that we are getting more sort of comprehensive or solutions now in China. It's not just that we have an EV truck running on one flow here and there. We actually more created this, ecosystem that we have intermodal and then EV, and we also have this drop and go solution where we actually can use the EV tractor to really get the investment cost down and get the efficiency up of the EV head itself, and then to actually drop the trailer somewhere. So this is really what we also see is the next phase that we have now in China, that we really need to support our service providers to plan our shipments better. And we also see that the volume fluctuation is also more challenging with EV than with diesel trucks. So it's really in both of interest to be able to together utilize and plan shipments in a way so we can get more, we can really, balance this higher investment of the EV truck. So that is really our main focus, to support our carriers to get really, this return on investment in a better way and have even more EV trucks in our flows.
Great, thanks, Fanny. I think a couple of interesting points brought up. Sorry, Fanny, I'm just going to say that there's a bit of a crackle voice which is coming from your speaker for some reason. Maybe it's the internet or something else, but while we kind of move to the other speakers, maybe there's a way for you to fix that as well. But good observations, Fanny. I think key learnings. One is, of course, working good to see that companies like you are also investing and making sure you're working with your carriers to kind of find those solutions, not really kind of leaving it to them, which is something that we've been hearing consistently from the other EV100 and EV100 members that we've been speaking as well. The investment of companies working with carriers and kind of finding those solutions. We'll come to a bit more of that on in the next question, Fanny. With that, I'll probably move to Mridul. Mridul, how do you see and how do you assess the trucking market in India? Also, the question is coming from the place where you see the evolution and the transition of electric trucks in a certain way. As well, you have a specialization of retrofitment, which is from where you come. So really kind of seeing how do you assess the trucking market, one, and what is the role that Kalyani Power is wanting to play here?
All right. Oh, first of all, thank you for having me here. And I think there's a solid question coming in the opening of the discussion. I think the Indian story is need not talked about again and again. I think we all know that we are poised for a pretty solid growth here. I think the GDP still talks high single digits, but there are certain segments we are actually seeing growth in double digits. So I think with the rising consumer patterns, we believe the overall industry will continue to bloom. And I also see with the improvements in the geopolitical relationships with the neighboring countries, we strongly believe India will have a major role to play from manufacturing perspective. And I think that's a very proud accomplishment that we have achieved in the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years. Transportation, I think it has a direct contribution to the overall Indian growth story. I think Sumit in his speech mentioned 45% of the population of the bar chart that we saw was coming from the fast-moving consumer goods, and then about 18% was coming from perishable, and milk was specifically about 9-10%. Now, if you just total up this is good quality 70-75% of the majority population that's driving the economy so far in a bigger way. So we at Kalyani Powertrain believe that addressing this particular pie in the overall landscape of commercial vehicles, let's say, for example, starting from 7-tonner going all the way to 55-tonner, this pie, which is, I would say, 11-tonner to about 25-tonner, is good 60% of the total volumes. And that's where we believe there is an opportunity to operate with a battery electric vehicle. So if you have a range which gets covered in a single day, 24-hour cycle, I think the fuel first choice, preferred choice goes as battery electric vehicle. And then with an enhanced version of it, we've also invested in a new technology called range extenders. So with your available ICE trucks, if you have a battery electric solution, a smaller capacity, you will be able to go additional miles with it. And then comes the alternate fuels, right? Whether it's hydrogen or anything else, fuel cell technology, etc. So we're going step by step. We're taking very holistic approach. We're going step by step. Back in 2016, 2017 is when we first wrote our strategy paper that we need to move the way the markets are moving. So the markets were moving more from alternate fuels and kind of sensitized on going green. So we then started investing in various startups in India and outside India. And that's how we understood how this technology is going to evolve. So we first built our repowered electric truck back in 2020, 2021. And we all know what we all did in COVID. I think it has its own great stories. People were working in their shop floors and, trying to come up with new products altogether. And I think very similar story happened here as well. So we kind of got our first truck doing certain kilometer or mileage accumulation, and we got it certified from ARAI. So we obtained the AIS 123 and AIS 038 standards for our truck and the battery from ARAI and CRT. And as we speak, we've got about 15 trucks built and doing customer demonstrations. So the whole idea is whether it's the battery, whether it's the electric motor, or the complete power and control electronics, in the times to come, or rather in the last couple of years, we have started building them in India. We are not dependent on countries outside, so we're going China plus one. If I just put it in a nutshell, we are designing our own power and coolant control electronics in India through our joint ventures and investment partners that we have done across the globe. So the idea is to bring a very cost competitive battery electric truck or a range extender to Indian transportation industry. That's the motto. In short, that's the vision statement. Now, what have we accomplished so far? As I said, we've gone ahead and built about 15 trucks, which are doing mileage accumulation and customer demonstrations with applications like cement, milk, FMCG, so to say. And we initiated with steel as well to some segment. Bharat Forge has a major play in steel. So we're doing it for ourselves. And what we've realized is that after traveling these 300,000 kilometers with the customers, there's a whole lot of data that has come on the table as to how the truck is performing, what's the use case looking like, what is the charging requirement, what are the charging needs, right? And does it really match the turnaround time of an ICE vehicle, right? So there were a lot of perception issues to answer the first part of your question that, how is this going to evaluate and change? I think the biggest barrier that we have right now is it going to match the performance of the ICE? After traveling 300,000 kilometers, I am saying that this is going to be better than ICE in certain segments. If you expect an electric truck to operate 1,000 miles per day, I think that's not going to happen today. And that's not happening anywhere in the world also right now, right? We're still a little away. But as I said, as we speak, we are trying to gain customer confidence and moving on.
Excellent, Mridul. Thanks for some of those thoughts. I think there were a few bold statements there as well. And I think one thing that really kind of spoke to me strongly was about the misconception about the industry about some of these things, and specifically the new alternative technologies, including battery operated. Is there something that really stands out for you as one of the biggest misconception about electric trucks or the future technologies which you are grappling with, and how do you see that kind of playing out for you as an organization? But how do you kind of also counter that as well?
Atul, the biggest one was that are electric trucks for real? That was the biggest question that I faced in the last 6 to 8 months. We've traveled extensively in Pan India. We've looked at every demographics, to the suburbs of Bombay, to Bhiwandi, to the ghats of Lonavala, for example. And now we are stretching ourselves all the way to Karnataka as well. So this is one corridor which we picked, and we are trying to electrify all the way from Vadodara till Neelmangala, I would say, by Bangalore, to be specific. As I said, the biggest one was, are electric trucks for real? So until we showed it to our customers, they were not believing it. And I still see people getting photographs clicked in front of the truck that, okay, this is an electric truck, I'm seeing it for the first time. So I think Indian market is a fast adopter. And so there's a new hero in the industry now. And it's going to take some time for it to have a really good box office collections coming in. So as I said, so I think the biggest, the best way to address this challenge is you travel longer with your customers. If I start pursuing on the selling opportunity on day one, it's not going to work. The whole idea is to bring in solution, end-to-end solution, including the charging and the battery. Until that comfort and barrier is addressed in the mind of the customer, they will not work with you. And we have been doing this for the last 8 to 10 months by introducing new trucks every quarter in the market, by just running the trucks with the customers, understanding their businesses. How are they operating that? What are driver challenges? So we've got into the granularities of, even the braking of the truck or accelerating of the truck. So how does a motor gonna behave, for example? How does a battery gonna behave in the situation of higher current? So we've gone into those micro level detailing and got those data captured, put them in the presentation slides, and start communicating it to the customers. So when they started receiving that information, I realized that my top 10 customers have kind of moved on from 10%, I would say, to 50-60%, right? So and I think that's the biggest, I would say that's the most proud accomplishment for any product to get conceived and perceived in the right manner. Once you hit the tipping point, then there is no looking back. we're all looking for is a
Absolutely.
tipping point to be able to, smooth in really, really gracefully. So I specifically mentioned to you about the corridor. My intention, my strategy is not that I want to put my trucks on day one pan-India level. I am saying we address one corridor, we take a baby step, we win customer confidence, we deploy 10, 20 trucks, and then we move on. We are looking at customers' charging requirements. We cannot put chargers pan-India anywhere and everywhere. So we're going step by step, we're taking baby steps and looking at the opportunity in totality. I hope that answers your
Sure.
question.
Absolutely, Mridul. Thank you so much. I mean, clearly, I think there's a message is clear. We'll have to make this a hero, right? And there's a journey for the electric trucks for it to become a hero, for it to be a Rahul Dravid or for it to be a Shah Rukh Khan at some point, right? And I think we are all important kind of actors within that thing to kind of make that happen as soon as possible. I know people are going to be probably cursing me, killing me for having their wrong idols, but these are my idols, so I'm shamelessly just putting them out there. Well, anyways, I think moving on, I think Venus Radhakrishna sits in a very kind of, I think, a good place of kind of serving the customer, which is probably in this case could be an IKEA. And then, of course, on the other side, which is you've got the manufacturer as well, right? So, you have got difficulties multifold, right, in that way. So, having heard about Venus Logistics, you work on a spectrum of solutions on sustainability. I've been reading a bit about what you've been doing. It's fully electric trucks. There's a bit of LNG powered things. There is hydrogen fuel cells. There's dual fuels and so on and so forth. Right? Where do you see electric trucks, battery operated electric trucks, situated in the scheme or overall scheme of things? And what's your assessment on that, Radha?
Yeah, thank you, Atul, to be over here and to put my voice over here, and a lot of dignitaries are over here, and thank everyone for this. So to start with, Readers as a group always focused on sustainable solutions. So we are logistic providers where we have to invest a good amount of money, and we are having very thin margin, and we do not have any control on the shippers since we are into logistics. First point. Second point, coming to electric vehicles, earlier it was very hype in India that electrification has to be taken care. There is a lot of pressure coming from the Western countries. Something is happening in the Europe where towards the sustainable changes, sustainable policies. A lot of things have happened which created a room to us to think on that front. When starting, when it come to the electric vehicle, it was like, India mein electric vehicle, it was like a question mark for us, and that too for the transportation. Even today, we have a very less carrying capacity vehicles. So likewise, you have very much clearly WRA Chandan has illustrated that this is a group of 100 plus and so and so, right? So we are having 51% of our business into chemical transportation, where we look for the higher carrying capacity vehicles. Now it has brought a question to us, so where to start with. So it was very exciting to how to start it. So we have thought, okay, we'll go for some XYZ vehicle, some XYZ capacity, and we will pick so and so customer and we do the service. But again, we thought, going back to the same sustainable calculations to scope 1, 2, and 3, the basics, right? So we are burning coal, and again, we are charging the vehicle. So what is the use of buying the electric vehicles? We are somewhere we are losing our focus. So we have studied for 3 months, and we have come to a conclusion, and our management has come to a conclusion with the global team that we will electrify, we will solarize our warehouses. From that warehouses, we will run the EV vehicles. That was the first thought we have decided in 2022, and we have started initiation in March 2022. And by the time the global summit and G20 occurred in September, the first, we are the one of a member in the EFAST along with the NITI Aayog. So there we have concluded, and by November we are totally running our 3 lakh square feet warehouse in Bhiwandi with total solar power. But unfortunate is that again in India we got certain terms where we need to again put it into the grid and get it back. So there is no facility to use that green energy. But still, we are cleaning the grid. That is one point, and we are using the whole solar energy for charging our vehicles. So we have started in that way. It was very fascinating. And then once it is done, we have opted for smaller carrying capacity vehicles within a smaller range, because if you go for the bigger capacity vehicle, the range of the vehicle is less. If you go for the, so it's, everyone knows, it's very clear, if you want a bigger battery, your kilometer will come down, your kilometer will rise, and your carrying capacity will come down. And if you want more kilometers, then your carrying capacity will move away. So that is one factor. So we have opted for the smaller vehicles, and we have collaborated with our customers. We have gone for the long-term contracts, which we have invested, and really we are enjoying that fruitful results.
Great, thanks, Radhakrishna, on that. I think just picking from there, you mentioned about how there's been an assessment of sorts of what really works and should work well in the Indian scenario of sorts. And I was just wondering if you also have a thought and you've looked at what industry segment, and when I say industry segment, what use case or application do you find is one which is really a low-hanging fruit for electrification in India? We've done some analysis, but it would be good to get your opinion as well. And if that's the case, if you already have identified what those low-hanging, easy to kind of go use case applications are, then what kind of immediate support are you expecting from policy?
So two things I would like to highlight over here. In last couple of months, there is a lot of, I mean to say, realization in, and there is a lot of development in mining and other sectors, right? So likewise, we have focused on OEMs. So where this OEM takes the material and how it is going to happen. Then we have focused on the automobile industry, where they will carry the smaller capacity of items from warehouse to manufacturing unit. So that is a one of a low hanging fruit for us from the warehouse part. So we have picked that one. And second one is like, now the carrying capacity of the vehicles is coming up. Now we need to really take care of the infrastructure to 100% utilization of those vehicles. So for example, I say, if my Tata EV, or I don't want to take the name, I'm sorry. So if a smaller carrying capacity vehicle is running for giving a run of 100 kilometers, as a logistic person, what I see is I need to sweat my vehicle. It has to run for 100 kilometers, then it has to run back for 100 kilometers. So we are looking for partnership with the end users also, so that our vehicle will go over there, it will unload the vehicle, and again it gets recharged and come back. So this is a one of a collaborative way. If we can move ahead, definitely we can sweat down the vehicle. And I think I should not name any sort of industry. Everywhere it is possible. The only thing is we need to have a very open mind and solution-based work. That's it.
Fair enough. I think we've, at least in the last couple of weeks, in all our interactions with some of the companies, specifically from the EV100 and EV100 pool, plus pool, Radhakrishna, we've been hearing about sweating the vehicles as much, and that's really going to be uh, a way in which makes it much easier for people to kind of taking those economic decisions on whether you go or not. What we've also heard, three things is cost, speed, and reliability. Really kind of making sure that the vehicles are cost effective, they have speed clearly, and that should be backed with reliability as well, in terms of just being up and working, right, as well, which is important. I'll go in the reverse order and close my final question with Mridul. Mridul, time and again, we've heard this, financing is important. It's going to be key for us to unlock the transition on electric vehicles. Uh, I think the traditional ecosystem understands a bit about how conventional financing is happening to trucks, largely kind of being driven by a certain set of financial institutions. NBFCs have a role to play, but clearly electric trucks and the alternative technologies still need to kind of prove themselves on the road, right? And then there are the other dimensions of ownership, who's owning it, how big are they, can they kind of take vehicles on the books, and so on and so forth, right? So what's your quick assessment, and just mindful of that we have 15 minutes, what's your quick assessment of the financial space, and is there something that you've been thinking through as your organization of how this can be supported as well?
Right. So yeah, I think we all understand that commercial vehicle today runs 75%. I would not be surprised if it's 80% also on financing. It's on lease. People make money and then they kind of generate the payback. Electric vehicles have a higher upfront cost, and there is an obvious reason and analogy behind it. But as long as the payback still comes at a certain economical value to the books, customers are still accepting it. Now, a repowering solution makes it even more convenient because we're kind of re-looking at the circular economy. You're not creating an absolutely new truck out of it. You're just repowering what's available with you. So the good value proposition is if you have a 6 to 8-year-old truck that's out of EMI, you're already making money out of it, get it fully utilized till the 15th year, which is as per the Motorable Act of India, right? So that's the whole idea behind it. But what I'm saying is, let's say, for example, if the payback is not lucrative, then it still doesn't make sense. So until it makes sense, the customer is not going to take it. We all know it. So now answering the second aspect of it, so there are banks and NBFCs who are willing to step up. What they are emphasizing more on is what is the NPV and what is the IRR. So as long as you still have an IRR which is lucrative for the books, the banks are willing to fund it. So we are interacting with the reputed ones in the country on weekly basis, and we started customers are also getting on the table to be able to for them to be able to understand how financing is going to be more lucrative for EV vehicles. So I will not be able to put specific numbers on it, but I'll still give a food for thought here. If your battery electric vehicle is still able to give you a payback of less than 4 years, the customer will give a strong thumbs up. And as Radhakrishnan sir said it, if it's able to run 200, I am saying 300 kilometers. I'm adding another 33% to it. If it's 300 kilometers, you have a sweet spot to sweat the asset and get the payback in less than 3 years also. That's where the objective is.
Amazing. I see a lot of optimism, Ridul, specifically on the financing part of it. We'll probably have to exchange notes with you and see where that optimism is coming from as well, in terms of which kind of banks are really looking at this seriously as well, as we kind of get into the pilot stage and Climate Group doing some of that as well, right? Fanny, the last question to you is really kind of zooming out a bit and thinking about the role of corporates and corporates like you, of course, IKEA being one of the leading companies in advancing the electric truck adoption in India, and just really kind of seeing if you've got any thoughts of how corporates and demand side companies can rally together to kind of make this transition happen in an accelerated fashion.
First of all, I think that we have a great responsibility that we really need to take. And we really, we also need to see that no actor, I think, can do this alone. So it's really about collaborating. And I think that is why we joined, in supply, we joined EV 100 Plus, and in IKEA retail, Inca, we joined EV 100, because we feel like we need to come together. I think to accelerate this, we really need to try to create confidence on the market, because what we really see that many of the carriers that we are discussing with today, they do not really have a confidence in actually starting to utilize EV. So that is what we would like to do, be very clear with the direction and create this confidence so that OEMs and carriers actually dare to invest, because we also see the availability of trucks is not there. But then, of course, we need to join also, we join this eFast, the signaling of demand signaling, right? Where we came together, 15 companies, and we had a need of 7,700, I think it was, in 2030. And of course, that is what we are doing also because we want the government to offer more subsidies and support to this industry as well. And of course, if we are super clear and that this is the way that we are going, we hope that we can create that, transition on the market. And of course, we need to take our responsibility and also offer long-term contracts and security to our service provider and business partner. So I think we all need to, so much is cooking, in the market now in India. So I think that if we just can collaborate and come together and have this clear direction, it will be so strong. but we all need to play our part and work together.
Thank you so much, Fanny, for that question. We've got a question from the audience, Fanny, for you, and this may be a very specific question. You might want to kind of take this offline as well. The question is from Harish Kumar from Volvo Trucks. Harish is asking, has IKEA installed chargers in the hubs, or are these public charging stations utilized for these electric trucks that you folks are planning?
At least if I look at how we done in China, then we have been doing both, in our warehouses or in our industry or suppliers, we have either ourselves or our service provider or supplier have actually then set up charging infrastructure. So I think that is a combination. What we are sort of piloting and seeing now in India is to actually charge in our warehouse and in our stores before we have this infrastructure in place. So of course it depends, but we of course want to collaborate so we can create these green corridors together, because it's not sustainable if we need to do everything. We cannot create this infrastructure if we need to put both the charging and the trucks in place, right? But of course we have different solutions, and of course initially we also see that we need to utilize our own locations for charging.
Thanks, Fanny. We have a question for the panel. Maybe I could ask Radhakrishnan to reply to this one. So the question is from Tataya ZEV India. What are the major factors to be considered for installing chargers for trucks? How will it vary according to different freight corridors when scaling at a pan-India level? Ada, this may also come from your experience of looking at
Yes.
warehousing and setting up charging infrastructure.
So basically, setting up a infrastructure, again, quality of energy and quality of service, both the things are very important when you look into the charging infrastructure. So one point is very much clear, that the strategic points are there where you require. So each and every business and each and every segment has their own idea. And each and every business, as a logistics person, I say I will travel my vehicle, send my vehicle to 1,000 kilometers. That will be a good agenda for me. And as a decarbonization person, again, I say, why should my vehicle travel for 1,000 kilometers? So there are two types of thought process in the logistics itself. So likewise, there are a lot of ambiguity in charging infrastructure, but still, I feel in this way, the reliable way is the best way to put the charging infrastructure. For example, I say, if you have a wind power in your highway, if you have a solar power where you can utilize, so that renewable energy could give a better result rather than putting the I can say the way what we are using as of now. That will not make a fossil fuel energy, doesn't make any difference. So it's like we are going to be a second Germany in other way we can say. So we will be having infrastructures, but we do not have the power. So before getting into that infrastructure point, first we need to understand from where these are coming from, what is the capacity we require. So likewise, I say, when we interact with the principal secretaries or someone in the ZVIMI meetings, so they will say, sir, what is your when infra people will come and ask how much you can provide it to us. So they are not giving any commitment from the government end that this much of electricity will be given for this EV sector. So there is no guarantee. So if our energy usage goes higher, what is our capacity of building the same? This is a question. So energy industry is also involved into this, and they are looking into this. That is the reason people are looking this in an individual perspective, not a national perspective. Because I am bounded to do decarbonization. Yes, I will do. By hook or crook, I am trying to put my things in the place, and as per my convenience, I am putting my charging points, and I am servicing my clients. I'm providing my services to my clients. That is the way it is as of now, as a logistic perspective. And and then again, this question is very relevant to Mridul. He can answer in a very good way, better way, I say.
So no, I think thanks, Radhakrishnan, for those perspectives. Mridul, we were just taking a few questions, and you might want to respond to that as well. But there is one specific, which is really saying if the road conditions affect the vehicle efficiency, I mean, prima facie, I think the response is yes, clearly. But if you might want to kind of weigh on that, and specifically from the aspects of quality, traffic, multiple halts. This question is from Saptarishi De.
All right. So, very valid question, an important one. Good thing is that the Indian road infrastructure has significantly improved over the last 5, 7, 10 years. And we see massive improvements coming up, and it's very evident also, number one. Number two, electric vehicles are known for best operated in a traffic congestion area because it has a regenerative braking and it kinds of give you those 10, 12, 15% efficiency gets added back to the vehicle. So, I think Radhakrishnan sir was talking more about the availability of the resources, which is primarily in subject as energy. So, honestly speaking, my personal perspective as of today is not to conquer the world. My whole objective is go little, go small, and accomplish, deliver, make the benefits on the P&L, let the customer really believe in it. As far as energy production is concerned, that's a national priority. It's a national agenda, and dependency on oil is reducing any which ways. So I think it's a much larger geopolitical subject, which I would probably refrain giving my personal opinion right now. But as I said, if we are able to successfully deploy 100 trucks on a corridor, I think we've got the tipping point. We need to start. So that would be my urge right now. And Radhakrishnan sir, very happy to work with you on only one.
Sure.
All right.
I just also want that.
Go ahead, Fanny.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I just also want to agree with you. I think here we are now supporting our service provider and carriers who have the EV trucks to actually purchase renewable electricity. So we bundle the need. So we have, where we do not have PV panels that can charge our EV trucks, then we are, doing it in that way. So I think that we need to take step by step, and we will get there if we start.
Yeah, there are customers who are offering their solar energy. They're saying we will divert some of this to when we operate the trucks. So the charging will happen at our dock, and let the truck do the duty and come back and repeat the process. So there are customers who are opening up, and they understand that yes, renewable energy is going to be a significant value addition. So it addresses your carbon emission at the complete value chain end to end. Number one. Number two, not to forget, which is very, very important, how much you make money. So your unit economics is lucrative when you're using solar.
Yeah, absolutely. The bottom line is as important as the top line sometimes. Yeah. So, and I think that's a great way to kind of end the session today and the panel discussion. We've had almost 10 more questions sitting in the chat. Unfortunately, we won't be able to take some of those, but if these are specific, we'll make sure that we kind of share those with Fanny, Radhakrishnan, and Mridul, and seek some of your responses if you would like to share those with us as well. I think with that, I personally take a lot of optimism from this conversation. Like I said, this is a series of conversations we are running. EFAST, Climate Group, and a host of civil society organizations are doing a great amount of work, and we certainly urge the industry to kind of work with us so that we can accelerate this transition. We'll probably have the next round of this conversation with a different set of stakeholders and a different perspective on a certain subject on this transition. Hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll keep you posted. Until then, thank you so much, all the speakers, Fanny, Radhakrishnan, and Mridul, for your time, and look forward to working with you. And thanks, everyone. Have a nice rest of the day. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
See you.
Thank you,
Thank you so
everyone.
much.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.